Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're your hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every weekday, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can find all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues affecting you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
Good afternoon. I will call to order the Fitchburg Housing Advisory Committee meeting at 3:05 p.m. on April 14th, 2025. First item on the agenda is roll call. Lorene, could you do roll call for me, please?
Here.
Godwin?
Yeah.
Jenny Sanders?
Here.
Marshall Mertens?
Here.
Mallory Gorman?
Here.
Nate Farmer Eden? Gabriella Gerhardt? All right, that is it.
Okay, next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. I need a motion on the approval of the February 10th, 2025 minutes.
I'll motion.
Second.
Okay, any comments or questions as it relates to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is public appearances for non-agenda items. Do we have anyone in chambers or online for non-agenda items?
No, no one is here.
Perfect. Let's move to the next agenda item. We have a speaker, Steve Hanrahan from Habitat for Humanity is here. Welcome, Steve. I don't think I can see you. There you are. Welcome to the committee meeting. We're glad to have you. I did a little research on you before today, so I was listening to some of your, some of your discussions, and I was happy to know that Habitat does have some homes in Fitchburg. A few, but not a lot. So I'm hoping you are able to appraise us of what Habitat is doing in Dane County and specifically in Fitchburg.
That'll be my goal. Thank you very much for having me. Lorene kind of set me up for this and basically told me I've got to get all this done in 2 hours. So I hope we got time. No, I'm going to be brief. And I know because you're participating in a housing committee, you might know some of what I want to present to you today, but I just thought we could go over that quick. I am not inclined to read my slides to you, but if you have a question of any of them as we're going through them, please interrupt me. We can certainly address those as we go, or at the end if there's time, Lorene, we can have questions. Very good. So I'm Steve Hanrahan. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Habitat for Humanity, Dane County. We are an affiliate of Habitat for Humanity International. We have a mission and vision like all organizations do. We live our mission every day, and we have a vision that I think is worthy to remember that we do bring families and communities together with hope that we can improve the housing situation. As an affiliate, we've been around since 1976, Habitat International, started in Atticus, Georgia. It's still there today. You can go down and even visit the first Habitat homes that were built many years ago. As an affiliate, that might be coming up, but we built a ton of homes around the country and around the world. It is an international organization. We are one of about 1,100 affiliates in the country, and there's about 35 in the state of Wisconsin. Most of them are organized by county, and we are one of those that is. We only operate in Dane County. So if you're outside of our county and you see a Habitat restore, you see a Habitat development, that isn't what we've done, but we share information around the area. I didn't want to take just 1 minute to remember Jimmy Carter. He is our most famous and one of our most supportive ambassadors of Habitat. He did not start Habitat, but he's been there since the beginning and has been extremely helpful in getting us on the map and helped us move forward. I'm going to enter the part of the presentation that you probably know more about than most people. Obviously, we're in the middle of a crisis, housing crisis, not just here, but all over America. And I just wanted to make sure we remind ourselves of that. And this I'm sure you know, but just for clarity purposes, we always talk about what the median sale price of a home is in Dane County. Anybody want to guess what it was or 2024? It's pretty close. Yeah, $431,000. So there's no question of how you can get from, hi Brian, how are you? Get from where we are talking about housing to understanding where the crunch is. Just important to keep that in mind. You all know about the regional housing strategy. I'm not going to go through this in any detail. I just want to point out that there is a summary on their website, and I'd welcome you to visit it if you haven't already downloaded, if you want to have a copy. But some of you I recognize from the actual meetings that took place. So I thought that was a great opportunity for all of us to get together, come up with a strategy for the county that has some continuity to it. Again, for review, what are the challenges to building affordable homes? Clearly, cost, rising construction costs. And I just want to emphasize one thing in the cost area, which is part of an economic phenomenon that we're all familiar with, but labor is a very integral part of the cost of construction. And when you're in an area where there's a shortage of those folks that can do the building, the costs tend to rise a little higher than they would in a different kind of a market. And that's where we are in Dane County right now. There's a definite shortage in the construction area. And we hire subcontractors. We also use volunteers to build, but we are still part of the need to have that industry change if it's possible, get more trained folks. From a Habitat standpoint, we're looking at construction costs. Our infrastructure costs go up as well when we're talking about developments. There's some concerns about impact fees, but these are universal for all builders. They're not just for affordable housing, but as you try to build affordable housing, they become a little bit more challenging. Municipal barriers, I must say we've had a very good run the last few years dealing with municipalities and understanding what's needed in the affordable housing space. So I don't want to beleaguer this point too much, but there's some things you can, work on internally here with zoning and any restrictions or requirements that some developments have. For instance, a bare bones Habitat home would normally have a one-stall garage, but we are building in a development in Sun Prairie, as an example, that requires two-stall garages. So we meet where we can in the middle and provide what we can based on what the requirements are. And I'm not going to go over this slide. much at all in detail, but this gives you an idea of all the various costs that go into constructing a home and why it's difficult to make those homes affordable. Again, you can find all this information in the report. What Habitat for Humanity of Dane County provides is, from a programming standpoint, is clearly we're known for building homes, but we do more than that. We do repair homes. We also educate both budget-wise and mortgage-wise all of our partner families that are in our program, and we've taken that outside a bit. It's relatively new. I wish I could tell you we've educated millions of people, but not true. Most of the folks we've educated are our partner families. We operate a couple of thrift stores called Restore in Dane County. And new to us during the pandemic days, we started what's called a furniture bank, where we provide necessary items for folks that are trying to get back on their feet. And we partner with agencies to help us with that. We're not experts at all on the needs in that area, but we are pretty good at delivering and making sure that we can provide those families with what they might need. We've built 355 homes in Dane County since we started. We're pretty proud of that. I'd like to see our home repair program grow, but we have currently helped families repair 62 homes. I'm going to get into that a little bit more in the next couple of slides. 71 folks have graduated from our financial capability training, and that's in addition to our partner families. They all go through the same training program, and we've helped almost 200 families through our furniture bank. That's managed and handled primarily through our Restore. That's how we're able to pull that one off. Obviously, home building is what we're all about. Our optic of building with the community, with folks wearing hard hats and tool belts and, wielding a hammer and pounding nails is what we're all about. So you've heard about that. We've been around since 1987, as I mentioned. Home repair, it's all about preservation. We do not remodel homes. We don't add additions to homes. It's basically critical repairs, weatherization, and then accessibility is a big area that we're involved in. It's had various names over the years that I'm sure some of you have heard. How age in place is a very important aspect of that. As we get older, some of our mobility changes, and maybe we need to have some ramps and some accessibility issues that we can help take care of that. So that's mainly what we do in that area. I do have a couple, pictures of this area, but I think you all know that 60% of our single-family structures are getting really old. If we're going to be able to address this housing issue, new construction is not the only way that we're going to be able to, and what we have to move forward. In fact, a majority of our workforce the next 20 years are going to live in existing housing. You got to keep that in mind when we talk about the housing space and what we're all about here. Reinvesting in these structures has a lot of advantages. Obviously, some of those are stabilizing the values, improves the efficiency and sustainability of everything. And I think underestimated is it helps renew communities. People establish a growth in their pride of where they live, and they tend to stay in these homes once they've invested in them, bring them up to what standards if there's a safety issue. So it's very important. Our education services and mortgage mitigation is what we're all about as well. I tell everyone we develop, we build homes, and we're the bank when it's all done. And I'm going to get into more details on that as we move along. But those are some of the areas that we educate our partner families with, and hopefully the communities understand and bring people to us for that. Our restores have been very successful. We're traditional in the sense of what we sell in our restores and how we operate, but they've generated about $7.3 million in net profits towards our mission. And we load that program up in the nonprofit world with some of my time, some of our CFO's time, some of our CEO's time. So the numbers I'm giving you are the net that goes right into helping us build homes. I'm not sure if I can remember, we can do the math, but if you wanted to do it, we've supported 81 homes out of the 350 some with the restores. Last year we generated 2.5 million. This year we're going to be a little bit under 2.6. We've grown every single year as a restore, and it's an integral part of how we operate. The net ranges from this number around 390 up to over 600,000 a year, depending on various costs that we've absorbed into the restores. I hope these are familiar pictures to you. We have one on the east side, one on the west side. We're co-located. Our furniture bank works just like a food bank. People donate items to the restore, and we then work with the partner agencies in meeting their needs. When they're a pretty good example would be, maybe someone who's leaving a less than ideal situation with their partner. They want to get out of that, and they're in a halfway house, if you will. We can help them get the furniture they need to get back on their feet and get stable in the community. This is what we do. I'm going to let you read that, but we deal with families between 30 and 60% of the area median income, and that's household income. It's not per capita or whatever. Anyone over 18 years of age that's in a household, their income counts towards the total household income. It was easier a couple of years ago before the AMI of our county and area went above 100,000, because you could do the math a little bit easier. Because 30 to 60% of 100,000 is families between 30 and 60,000 in annual income. It's a little higher than that now. So the HUD numbers that we use are now in the order of somewhere a little north of 30,000 as the least, and a little above 73,000 at the most for the household. We finance that mortgage at 0%, and we cap the homeowner's payments at 28% of their net income, of their gross income. So it's similar to a conventional mortgage, except there's no interest, and they cap things a little bit higher than that than we do. But our payments have to include principal, insurance, taxes, and then any HOA or condo fees if that's applicable to the type of development or type of home we're building. So if you can remember anything I'm telling you today, this is what Habitat does. And it's getting increasingly difficult as the selling price of our homes keeps going up, because that means that they're going up higher than the AMI is. So our gap becomes even greater, which means we need to raise more funds and figure out a way to fill that gap. Are there any questions about that before I move on, or to just wait to the end? Cool. This, I think you understand as well as anybody out there, but it's important to remember. Our families build equity from the day they sign on the dotted line. One thing I did leave out, by the way, our selling price to our families is the appraised value. We have a third party come out and appraise our homes. That is the set price. It's not based on our cost. It's not based on anything other than the appraised value. We do not sell at higher than appraised value, even though our costs are greater than that. So we've been doing that since we started in this area. But here's some of the benefits. I like to tell people that every single family that I've been associated with that partners with us, and some of you have been to our home dedications at the end when we get to turn it over to the families, they're doing it for their kids. They're not doing it for themselves. Almost every one of these families has a number of children in their family, obviously. So some of the benefits are listed here, and there's many more of them. But our families begin earning equity the day they sign on the dotted line, just like you or I do when we sign a mortgage. They can sell their house at any time. There's no restrictions on it, and it's a means of generational wealth, if you will, and we forget about that. I don't know if I cover the types of funding we get, but maybe this is a good time just to talk about some of the funding. We get CDBG funds from the city of Madison for homes in Madison and the county outside of Madison. And those are actually loans to our homeowners. It's a down payment because it's down payment assistance. So we actually, as the bank of the builder, actually receive some of that from the homeowner, but those loans are paid back to the city by our homeowners. Just a point that we don't always remember to share. I'm sure you all know this, but again, for review, the biggest problem with affordable housing, in addition to the cost of building them, is the availability, which is a byproduct of that cost, obviously. But there was a month, I think it was last fall, when I was talking to some realtors, and there were only 2 homes in Dane County that were for sale for under $300,000. I don't remember exactly what month that was, but if you start looking at the average, that is truly what that is. That's an average, and the affordability becomes increasingly more difficult as you start looking for homes that are in the price range that folks can afford. Financing is difficult for all the same reasons that we all have, high interest rates. We have a little different formula we use for existing debt, and we do have a credit history requirement. Please don't ask me what that is today because I can't remember. I believe it's 720, but it's not real high. But upfront costs are not talked about as much as people think. And on top of the mortgage, on top of the sale price, sometimes there's thousands that are needed at closing, and that's out of pocket in some cases. And that's very difficult for a conventional, it's very difficult for them to get a conventional mortgage to help satisfy that. Little snapshot on who our partner families are. You can read this. You have to have a need for affordable housing. It's not open to all families that are out there. They have to have the ability to pay their mortgage. And I want to emphasize that a little bit. That means they have to have a job, they have to have a history of work, and they have to be able to pay their 28% of their income. And then they have to have a willingness to partner with Habitat. Those are the 3 ingredients that we have for all of our programs. The need, the ability to partake and participate in the financial side of it, and then a willingness to partner with us. Now, some of our partners work on the sites, help build their house, or build one of their neighbors' houses. That's certainly one way. They do provide treats for our other workforce, which is our volunteers, and they also can work in the restore and help out along those lines. So that's partnering with us and helping them help the community that's helping build their house. It's all very important parts of the equation. We talked about the 30 to 60%. I was off by 100 points here. The 620 is the minimum credit score, and then we do require a 1% down payment, and that's paid once we know when the closing date is, not before that. And it takes us a while to build some of these homes, so some of our partner families are in the program for 12 to 18 months while we get all of this squared away. So they know it's coming. whatever. We do have a residency requirement and a Dane County resident requirement. When we say good rental history, we just try to make sure that they do have a rental history. They've rented for a year. It goes into the formula of their repayment capabilities. And we do a background check to make sure they can, that they'll be accepted and fit into the community where we're putting them.
Do you do a criminal, when you say background check, what does that entail?
I'm not going to say we do a criminal background check because I don't know if that's legal. Whatever the rules are on what we can check, that's what we do. I can get the answer for you. I just don't know it off the top of my head.
Curious.
Yeah. This is just a map indicating where we've built around Dane County. It's not a surprise that most of the population is in Madison, so most of our building has been in Madison, but we've made it a point, especially in the last 5 or 6 years, to move outside of the Madison area. It's not a Madison problem, affordable housing. All communities are experiencing that right now, so we need to be more conscious of that. I wanted to give you an idea of some of the things we've done over the course of the years. And some of these are before my time. I wasn't involved in them, but Harmony Park and Twin Oaks. Twin Oaks was our largest development until we got into the Sun Prairie area. North Point Commons and the Uplands, those were both developments that we kind of picked up when the original developer went south, and we've done that in a number of other situations. Certainly something we'd be interested if there's anything there. Renaissance on the Park is an example of how we came in after the original developer was working on the total development, and that's in Fitchburg. Been very successful for us. We have a lot of happy families there. One of my favorite stories about that is one of those families is now on the Dane County board. So it's kind of nice to have a Habitat family that's participated in that, and they're from Fitchburg. Tennyson Ridge is a Madison development. Able Court, Kai Court, All Creek, and Town Hall are all current areas that we're working on. We're finishing up Kai Court in Oregon. That was 4 twin homes. We put 8 families there. We'll be closing the last ones at the end of June. Able Court was similar in Stoughton. In both cases, we built the road into the development and then put the twin homes on either side of those roads. Town Hall Crossing is the largest habitat development in the state of Wisconsin history. It's a 118 lot development. We've completed phase 1. There'll be 4 phases to this development, and when we're done, there'll be 48 habitat homes, and this number is not correct, sorry. It'll be 70 market rate lots. Phase 1 had approximately 25 market rate and 12 habitat homes. The 12 habitat homes are up, they're built, and we've sold 20 of the 25 lots approximately in that phase 1. Owl Creek is in Madison. We've had a real good relationship with the city, and we've received, we responded to an RFP a number of years ago and picked up about 6 or 7 lots at a very reasonable price. And now we're building 2 twin homes on lots that we acquired from them just in the last couple of years. So those are kind of developments that we've been involved in. These are just currently some housing styles. This one here, I don't know, can you see my cursor? No, that's just me. The one on the upper right is in Oregon. The upper left is out in Town Hall. You can see the 2-stall garage on the side of that. And the one on the bottom is before my time, so I can't tell you where that one is located. Maybe one of you knows where that is, I don't. A couple more pictures, some townhomes that we have been involved in, and I just have the feeling that we're going to be involved in more of that going forward. We're going to have to adjust single-family home ownership doesn't preclude us from building a home ownership style townhome or condominiums or whatever they end up being. So these are just some other examples.
Where is the town hall development again? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, that's out in Sun Prairie.
It's
on the far
okay.
east side, if you're familiar.
Oh, yes.
It's actually at the intersection of Highway 19 or Main Street leaving Sun Prairie.
Yes.
On the way to Marshall, and Town Hall is one of the first intersections from the old days. It's a county road that goes north-south. It's a 63-acre development. 48 acres is residential.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So how do we finance it and pay for our projects? We do have financial products, but we don't make a lot of money off our mortgages, like zero. We ask for donations. Corporations and individuals make up the primary source of that, obviously. Restore sales. The concept of Town Hall Crossing is to have the market rate lot sales support the development. We're still struggling a bit with that because of the concept, I believe, and also because of the large expense of doing phase one in the development world, where Brian knows this. The municipalities get their parks and they get all the stormwater and all the grading, and then you start developing the lots to build on. So I'll be the first to admit that this was a big chunk to bite off for Habitat, but we're working through it, and we're working on getting phase two opened up, hopefully by next spring, so we can have some more Habitat homes there. We obviously work with partner banks. We have an operating line of credit, but we also have lines of credit out there for our infrastructure development. Gift in kind, our largest gift in kind is our volunteer labor. It's valued through Habitat International in conjunction with some HUD numbers, and right now about 20% of the cost of our Habitat homes we can attribute to in-kind contributions. Volunteer hours, here's the estimated value of $31.80. It's not a number we just pull out of the sky. There's actually some basis for that. So if you run the numbers out, and let's back up just a little bit, we really appreciate all the help that our volunteers provide us. It's also a source of our fundraising, because corporations will sponsor a build day as an example, and it's a community service day, chance for their workers to get together and get out and work together on something other than what they do on a normal day. So it's a give and take. It helps us use the community to help us build, but also helps us raise some funds. Sources of income for Habitat. I guess I blew this. I was supposed to go down these one at a time. We've already talked about most of those. We are a community development finance institution. We were the first CDFI in the country, or first Habitat affiliate in the country to get this designation. And we've been awarded a number of awards through the Treasury because we are a CDFI. We manage escrows for all of our partner families, just like a normal bank does, collect the escrow money and pay the property tax. Last year, our homeowners paid a little bit under $1 million in property tax that we're escrowing for them. We were just awarded another $685,000 from CDFI towards executing financial products in the community. And that's primarily, exclusively, I should say, our partner families. Again, we've talked about this. Basically, our homes, when I started with Habitat in this position 6 years ago, homes were appraising at about $180,000. They're now appraising at $275,000 to $280,000. So that's one of the big jumps in 6 years that we're dealing with. How does it work? This is just an example on a $267,000 home, have gross income. You can do the math here. I don't want to give you a math lesson because I don't think it's that important, and I don't know if you'll remember it. But I think the key is with 0% interest, it's a pretty good deal for the homeowners. It allows them to we give them a hand up, and then they can build some equity in their home and use that in the future. Here's a little bit of more detail on it. First mortgage on a $267,000 house that they can afford. Again, remember, we run their 28% of income out over 30 years. That's the first mortgage. If that doesn't cover the appraised value minus the down payment, we have a silent second mortgage and we take a hit on that one. So in this particular case here, and it's a really good example, the FHLBC, by the way, is a Federal Home Loan Bank. They provide down payment assistance as well. We're a member of not a member, but it's through the Chicago Federal Home Loan Bank, about $10,000. CBG funding is about $31,000. They give us a little bit of leeway in the county and the city on how we assign those funds. But anyway, on this particular example, we took a silent second mortgage of $60,000 and write it off day one. Homeowner does pay that back, but it doesn't need to be paid back till they paid their first mortgage, which is so far out there that we can't account for it as a receivable, and we just write it off. And when it starts coming back in the door, if they sell, they owe it. If they transfer it to anyone else, they owe that to us. So it's a windfall when we get it, if you can call a windfall something you've already lost your shirt on, but that's how we do the math.
Steve, what happens if there's if they can't make their payment? Is there a foreclosure process ever, or? Well,
because we are a bank, we follow all the laws and regulations that a normal mortgager would follow. I can tell you that our default rate is below the average default rates for homeowners. We keep our relationship with our partner families, so we kind of know when they're getting in trouble, and we will bend over backwards to help them not get into a default state. But we still have to treat them fairly, and we can't be stepping outside those lines, if you will. Right now we have 3 homeowners that are on the bubble, but we haven't defaulted on anyone for quite a while. So we do work with them, as do others. I'm not saying that conventional banks don't, but we kind of pride ourselves in our relationship with our homeowners, and we want to do anything to keep them from getting into that particular case. The last one that I remember, one of our requirements is that our homeowners have to live in their house. And we found out that one of them wasn't. They were living in Texas. And so we ended up having to foreclose on that because of that default of their agreement with us. But
Steve, can you just elaborate a little bit on the background of that? I want to know a little bit more. So was it a life change that caused the default, like maybe a divorce, or is that usually?
I don't know the details, and if I did, I'm not sure I could share those. Okay. I'm not trying to be coy.
No, I'm just curious because obviously they qualified in the beginning, but something changed down the road that.
Yeah, if you were going to move to Texas, you'd probably sell your house. All they had to do was sell their house, and they didn't do that. They just left. And so then there's the question of who's living there and all of that. Oops. I can get more details on that if you'd like it. This is how we raise our money. I've kind of covered this. Individuals, corporations, some foundations. We do share marketing efforts. Just recently it started with Habitat International. It's been a sticking point for us for many years because you get a request or a solicitation in the mail that says Habitat for Humanity, and everybody thinks that's us, but in reality it might be international. So they've kind of combined that, and now we share the results of the the efforts from either international or us, which is kind of nice. And then we've had a lot of support and a lot of help from individual municipalities. In our Town Hall Crossing development, the city of Sunbury helped us with understanding that there needed to be a sewer extension into the facility, and they help pay for that. They will recover that over time as the properties around us are developed. Town Hall Drive is going to be remodeled, I believe, next year, and instead of making that our responsibility, they put that in their capital budget to help with that. The Village of Oregon had a housing fund that they allocated some funds from that towards our Kai Court development. And these are all structured like the Kai Court one is, funds aren't dispersed until we have occupancy in the homes we're building, as an example. So the guarantee is there that we're going to do that. I'm hoping that we can work together with the city of Sun Prairie and hopefully Fitchburg as well with your extension of your TIDs in affordable housing environment. That would be, I think, a good use of some of the funds. I'm on the housing committee in Sun Prairie, and we extended a TID, and we have 4 pillars that we're going to be using the money for, and established an affordable housing policy towards that. So I'm eager to work with you if you need any more information on what you could do to help home ownership. Let me pause just for a second to remind everyone. I can tell you sitting here that unless we change for some reason the fundamental business we're in, all of our future homeowners are currently renters or will be renters. It's a requirement that you cannot be a homeowner and get a Habitat home. So it would be foolish of us to not support housing from rentals all the way through high-end housing, because we all know the pinch. If there's not enough high-end houses, that just rolls downhill and it makes the low end even harder to meet the needs of those that don't have the income. So we support housing in general. We understand there's a place for home ownership. It's not the only solution to the housing issue. I think we all know that if we can work together and increase the number of rentals, increase the number of high-end, it's only going to help us position more of what we do into the right slot in the communities. But we do need to collaborate on how we're gonna do that. I don't need to spend a whole lot of time talking more about the donations, income. We've already done that, talked about the government. Government contributions, I think I covered most of these. We've dabbled in SHOP grants. Anyone familiar with what that is? I think it refers to Self-Help Opportunity Program through HUD. My only concerns about that is there's just a ton of hoops and reporting and compliance we have to jump through, so it becomes a nightmare of dealing with them. But we have used some SHOP funds. Habitat International is the vehicle of where those funds come from, but it wasn't a ton of support through that, but we are certainly interested in that. How can you help us? Again, this presentation is all-encompassing. You never know what the audience is, but certainly financial donations, volunteering, and shopping or donating to our Restore are 3 of the main ways that folks support us. In the volunteer areas, again, we've talked about some of these, but in the construction area, that's what everybody wants to do. It's just not possible. Brian, you're a builder, and there's some things that volunteers can do, many things that they can't. I mean, we sub out all of our electrical, all our plumbing, all our roofing. We do siding and framing ourselves, but anything that requires a professional license, that goes outside of us. Restore is certainly a heavy need and heavy use of volunteers. We also have many committees And from time to time, we need some administrative help as well. So that's one way to get involved in it. I was just at the UW chapter of Habitat Super Bowl yesterday. Kind of a misnomer this year because they moved it. The intent is to coincide with the actual Super Bowl, only this one's spelled S-O-U-P because they serve soup. Well, anyway, a photographer was there, volunteer, with 2 or 3 cameras around his neck, very capable individual, and he was donating his time to come out and take what amounts to be good photographs of the event. Just another example of how volunteers can help. Our board and committees board and our committees are all made up of volunteers, and it's a special area. I would like to point out that there's many different kinds of volunteers. I don't just mean what they do, but their interest. Some volunteers on the construction site are expert builders, and they come out and help us in that way. But others, I mean, we have accountants, we have lawyers, we have others that said, I did that my whole life. I want to come out and do something entirely different. And building is entirely different than sitting behind a desk and, fighting in court with an opposing attorney. So we have all kinds of different volunteers. So if you know of anyone that's thinking of volunteering for Habitat, we take all comers. We just love our volunteers. They make it all possible. Talked a little bit about the UW Habitat UW chapter. It's amazing what these kids can do. The only frustrating part about it is everything's done at the last minute. But that's kids. That's what they do. I was there Saturday thanking a lot of folks that showed up, and we used dignitaries, as I call them, to serve the soup. And it was a great event. And they were all running around like their hair was on fire, making sure everything worked out right. But it's really a beauty to watch how these young kids have been stepping up to the plate and getting all this stuff done. We're almost done here. We already talked about the Super Bowl. I hope you've all heard about the Turning the Key to Home Ownership panel. It's going to be a true stage. They've got a new facility there. It's beautiful. That the facility will have a panel basically chaired by Kurt Paulson, one of the housing experts in the state. Would welcome your participation. Hope you can come out if you can. We were one of 5 affiliates in the country that Habitat International is supporting, doing various things during the month of April for the Home is the Key event. And then June 21st, we're going to be on the square with a housing advocacy event, if you will, but pounding nails, having some kids events and what have you on the square. So we're looking forward to that as well. I was going to play this video, but I told Scott I wasn't going to, so we're not going to try that because it probably won't work if I try it. You all know Gabriella. She's our VP of Development at Habitat as well. So we get to see her every day. And then her contact information is up here. And I think, you pass out some of my cards. I have more if they're available. And I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to tell you a little bit more about Habitat. I'm more than happy to go into greater detail if somebody wants more information as time goes on. Just reach out, please. If you want to come over to our place and visit us, be happy to entertain you. Lorene's been over to see us and gets more than a 20-minute overview of what we're doing. So thank you very much. Are there any questions I could answer tonight?
Steve, real quick, when money is donated or there's a fundraiser or something and that money goes to you, does that stay in Dane County or does it sort of go to international and then that sort of gets redirected and funneled back to Dane County? How does that?
That's a good question. The only money that we share from international is goes into and goes out. We do pay what you could call dues. They're not called that, but
is it like a franchise, kind of like a franchise fee sort of thing that you have to pay back up?
We're part of what's called a federated model. And I went to grade school and high school and college. I don't ever remember hearing that term, so I can't describe it in great detail. That's only for marketing, direct mail, direct marketing to the folks in our community. Anything that we generate locally stays right here in Dane County. And any support we would get from your group, as an example, would go to building in Fitchburg. So no, we don't share that the other way at all. It's all based on, it's called Habitat, guess what, 2.0? They did come up with a more original name, but anyway, I'm just waiting for 3.0 to come around. We'll see what that looks like.
Steve, I have a quick question.
Sure.
So I'm just going back to that Texas example that you use. Do you have first right of refusal habitat? So if somebody is in that default stage, that you can like take the property back and bring in another family?
That's a great question. The answer is kind of. We have the right for the first 5 years to buy it back at market value, not at cost or anything else. When we look at it, especially with today's huge increases annually in the value of homes, it hasn't been cost effective for us to do that because the amount we're not flippers. When we go in, we're going to make that house new again, and then we're going to put a partner family in it. So if we have to buy it back at market, which is greater than what we sold it to the family for, and then put another 30 or 40K into it, it becomes almost unaffordable to us. So no, we've done that once that I'm aware of in the 10 years I've been with Habitat. It's not a common occurrence. They can usually get more on the market, open market, than we're going to be able to pay.
Well, it just doesn't seem right when, you know, you have so much invested in the property that there isn't a way that you can have that trigger of some sort.
Believe me, we've talked about that. There's some that are able to walk away with quite a bit of equity, but we still have a far greater number of our folks that stay in their homes for longer periods of time than the normal market bears. We have somewhere around 90% of our homeowners are still in their homes out of the 350 that we've built. So it's not a common occurrence. First of all, if they sell their house, they're going to have to go and buy another house. We all know how fun that is, and then get a conventional mortgage with interest. And so it's not as easy a decision to just move out.
Olivia, I see that you have your hand up.
Olivia's with us? Oh, okay. Hi, Olivia.
Hi, Steve. How are you? Nice to see you. Thank you for that presentation. I'm wondering, when you work with municipalities, how they're working with you in order to, or if you're working together in a way that would help potentially reduce the cost of the development, whether it's in relationship to the building itself. One of the things that we're talking about as part of this best practices residential zoning guide to address the housing crisis we're kicking off tomorrow, actually, is given the trend in building industry trends with prices going up, land prices going up, supplies, and labor, and then this shortage, we're really, unless we start doing some value engineering to the housing stock itself, we're not really going to be able to provide any quantity of starter homes. And what I mean by that is, our community saying it's okay, we don't need you to have a 2-car garage, or you don't even need to have a garage, or let's put these, let's forget the driveways, I'm asking that because it doesn't seem logical to me that we're actually going to be able to get to this 250 unit goal that the Housing Advisory Committee put forward and said, and we need new housing that's affordable to folks who are 60 or 80% below the area median income without coming up with some sort of, more modern code that can accommodate that. So I'm wondering if any of the municipalities you've worked with are flexible on those types of accommodations or value engineering.
I'll try to unpack that. I was having a little difficulty hearing everything that you said, but I'm getting the gist of it, is wondering if there's some flexibility within the municipalities to deal with some of the restrictions and requirements of a development. And is that a fair way to encapsulate what you said, or?
Right, like you mentioned Sun Prairie required you to have a 2-car garage. That's a lot of money. So I'm just, you're in the business of bringing affordable housing forward. So
Yes.
I'm wondering if any communities are waiving that requirement or the requirement for a garage at all or a driveway or whatever.
I think I'm going to answer that I'm not trying to dodge the question, but first of all, this development was approved back in 2020. So it's 5 years old already. I believe from the standpoint of requirement, I might have used too strong a word. It was suggested that we would have a more likely approval if we would adopt what they have in the neighborhoods that surround Town Hall Crossing. And that's what all those neighborhoods had as requirements. Were we to do it over again, I think our strategy would be a little bit different. And I think I can speak for most of the communities I've talked to recently, and I'm going to give you the credit for it, because if you hadn't started all the work you've done, especially with the regional housing strategy, I don't know that there'd be enough information out there for the communities like Fitchburg to make some, hard decisions and say, what, we can back off of what is around that area and we can build a, part of the neighborhood could be habitat, and then maybe we can reduce the restrictions. I'm very optimistic in that regard, but I can't say that we have proof of that yet.
Okay, thank you.
Question, Steve, on one of the slides you had about City of Madison, I think it was, participating, and there was an RFP process for to qualify maybe for funds for land purchase.
It was actually an RFP to sell land that they owned, and there were 3 developers that responded, and they divided it up and gave each of us some of the properties. Didn't give it to us. They awarded us the opportunity to buy them.
Okay.
So, Then they have more property. It's in the Owl Creek neighborhood, which is just north of McFarland and south of the Beltline. Yeah, they own more property there, and they keep talking about going out on RFP again. This was many years ago that we bought the property, and then just finished our single-family homes last spring in that area.
We have one bucket of money identified that the mayor put in some dollars in a land banking program, but we need to put together the parameters of how we would. What kind of RFP process would be involved?
Well, I can share with you what the city sent out. I think it was 6 years ago.
Okay.
One of the first projects I worked on as the COO. Be happy to share that. I can report Dane County finally approved the land banking funding for Habitat to buy land in the county. Was approached by Mike Engelberger from Stoughton in a year and a half ago. It went in the budget, and it just took a year and a half to get it finally approved. So we don't know what exactly the process looks like yet, but we have the agreement signed, and so Fitchburg's in Dane County, so should be able to do some land banking.
So are there any other questions for Steve? No, thank you very much, Steve, for your presentation. It was absolutely wonderful. I really appreciate it.
You're more than welcome, and thanks for inviting me. Now I'm going to get out of the way so that you get your next speaker up here. Thank you.
Steve, would you mind sharing that with Lorene so we can send it out to the rest of the group?
The presentation, I
Yeah,
certainly
that
can.
would be great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep, will do. Here's your cord.
Brian, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I've built a couple of them. I was actually part of the mayor's build when the mayor's convention was here in Madison in 2001, I think. We did 6 houses on the west side of Madison at that point. It was part of Habitat's mayor's build, and all the mayors came out and participated, and I was one of the lead people being a construction expert at that time to help guide all the mayors, help build.
You remember where it was?
It was over towards Maple Grove, but I can't remember the exact street name because it's 23 years ago now, or 24 years ago.
Oh, that worked right away. Wow.
Hi there, Ann. How are you?
I am good.
Welcome to the committee. We're anxious to get your presentation on green pasture living.
Thanks. Shoot, what I do? Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. Okay, let me just get settled. Yeah, I feel like I need to answer my question. I built a Habitat house in Tennessee as well as other ones in Wisconsin, but that was like over 20 years ago, so I don't remember either. Big fans of Habitat. But I guess I'll start my introduction. Just want to thank Lorene for the invitation to come here and present with you all Green Pastures Living. And then I feel like I've seen people also, shout to Olivia, yes, you did great work, and I brought my book to reference if needed. And yeah, I think I saw Mike at the meeting last year, memorable with the ice cream. Okay. They had ice cream bars, so I think any meeting should end in ice cream bars. Thanks, Olivia. It works. So I founded Green Pastures Living about 5 years ago. I'm your neighbor. I live in Oregon, Wisconsin, so that's why I was nodding at all the Oregon things of Habitat. And yeah, I've personally supported Habitat for a long time and just have a passion for housing and a passion for rural living. I moved to Oregon in April of 2012, and that was about the same time that my own father needed transition in senior housing, and to personally go through it and seeing the need, not only for my family, but have met so many other people transitioning and needing that senior housing. And it was heartbreaking. He had dementia, and the one familiar thing he loved was living in rural Wisconsin, and we had to take that away from him too. And so I do that for him, and I do it for the many people who need senior housing. And personally, my joke is I'm 45, so in 20 years, I'll have this figured out for myself. No, I really hope I figure it out sooner than that. Our mission is to provide affordable housing and assistance to resources for the senior citizens who live independently and wish to remain rooted in rural living. And when I tell people senior living, I feel like all these different ideas come up. They're like, oh, do you do assisted living or nursing homes? And really, it's an innovative approach that I like to use these 3 references of TV and film to capture a more accurate idea of the vision and approach that Green Pastures Living, and I hope you've at least remember any 3 of these. So I'll start with It's a Wonderful Life. That movie is actually about how a community-focused approach was used to find housing for each other's neighbors, pooling that resources in the Bailey Brothers Building and Loan so that their neighbors could afford to live where they are. And then Golden Girls, that is what a small-scale community approach to living is, whether you're related or not. When I met with the zoning administrator, Deanna Schwartz, I asked, well, how many unrelated people can live together in Fitchburg? Do you know? 5. So the Golden Girls could do it in Fitchburg. But if you think about even a big house, you could only have up to 5 people unrelated living. And our society's changing, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with the city of Madison changing their definition of family to accommodate how people are living together differently in community. So that's just, it's a wonderful life when the Golden Girls can live at Green Acres, which is funny because some people call me Green Acres because they don't remember it's Green Pastures Living, and it always makes me laugh. But so the reference to Green Acres is really just how can people live in the country? Granted, in that TV series, they were rich, and that's how they were able to live in the country. But my challenge is how can people who are living in Fitchburg, in the country, afford to live in there? And that is why I want to start with some of the comments from the listening session from the Ag and Rural Affairs that just happened a couple weeks ago. Shout out to my dad. That is a picture from the 50s of his farming background. But the first quote is from a Fitchburg resident in that listening session that's about my age. And I just wanted us to start with that quote of think about the open spaces and landscapes that we have plenty of in Fitchburg. I love to drive from Oregon to Fitchburg, and I love those wide open spaces. But we, have obviously that pressure to develop. We have that need for, how are we going to develop this housing? And once we develop, we can't go back. So, a lot of the other comments is we need that buffer and that balance between rural and suburbia. And I feel like this is a great opportunity that the city of Fitchburg can rise to the challenge of how do we plan and for housing in both those areas, both rural and suburban, as a city to meet the needs of our residents and those who need to live here affordably. So the role that Green Pastures Living is, as an organization, how do we bridge those challenges to the senior housing? And I don't want to repeat a lot of things Steve covered. He covered a lot of things. But where's my notes? The 4 issues that we like to cover is accessibility. There's not a lot of houses that have accessibility. And especially in rural areas, the housing stock's even older. So you have older houses. According to AARP, about 10% of houses have one feature of accessibility, and that could just be grab bars. That doesn't mean they need, how are their steps up to their house? What about the clearance of the doorways? And it's not just old people who accessibility. Anyone who had surgery and needed to get around in something. Even having children in strollers, you see where accessibility is needed. But obviously, as you age in place, it's much easier to age in place if you have those accessibility options already in your house. Something that Steve covered a lot was, there's just limited houses in the price range. And I feel like one of the quotes, one of the houses that was in the price range was from 1850. That was the affordable number. And another is the pre-development cost. How many projects do you see don't go past the finish line because pre-development? Those impact fees, those sewer connections, those how do we even make this work? And then one of the things that we as doing small scale is how can we build using those vacant lots that the larger developers don't want to touch because, again, they can't make it work in the scale of it. And our focused approach is scattered small sites. So we hope to build on those infill lots to develop for seniors. So I started about doing this because of my dad's story, but I wanted to bring it really close to home here in Fitchburg from a prominent Fitchburg resident who allowed me to share this story because she's a big supporter of Green Pastures Living and has been advocating for housing for many years. Her family moved here in 1972, raised their children, served in their community, and ultimately planned to stay here the rest of their lives. But in their 70s, they knew they needed to transition to senior housing, and they started to put it off, but they knew, time was ticking of they just couldn't maintain their house anymore, and they needed to find something. So unfortunately, they moved out of Fitchburg. And I say, how can we change this narrative? Because even she said, I hope that not too many more people have to leave because each time Fitchburg loses some of its history and sense of community. I will tell you at the end who this is. But just more about our target market, it's different than Habitat's. So Habitat's was what, AMI? 30 to 60. Very good. So ours is, and I had to switch this even, I feel like the number's a moving target, is the missing middle income resident. It's those who own their own house and currently have no houses really in their range to stay living in Fitchburg. And our model is kind of similar to, if you're familiar with the proposal that was rent to own, where they were trying to build equity. That financial model is kind of similar to ours. I know that was so complex, but when I was listening to it, I was like, that's like our same math model, except for it's kind of reversed. Where rent to own, people started with no equity. We're trying to build houses using the seniors' home equity as the starting investors, if you can say. Because most housing developments have outside investors. They build this, they have this big property, they have to have outside investors to, buy the land. That's like how Terra Vista worked, all those things. And then they need to, have enough money to pay back those investors. And so our business model is, we're trying to build the house. Well, I'll just add that one. We're trying to build the house for the senior with their home equity, and their OI, the return on investment, is truly just the house that they want to live in and remain living in Fitchburg. I'll get to that more. It's complicated, but I feel like you almost understand it already because you spent hours listening to that other proposal. Just to clarify, to make sure we are on target with our business plan and service area, just doing a brief market study of Fitchburg and its demographics. These are all numbers from 65 plus household, and the average median income is about $89,000. And 78% of Fitchburg's senior households are in housing units and not rental. And then again, from another study, 25% of seniors say they have some sort of disability. Quickly, that missing middle income demographic numbers, about 35% are in that middle income bracket and probably growing. So even just 10% of that market share would be 36 residents, which doesn't seem like a lot, but as we do scattered small scale, that makes sense. So again, kind of our basic business model is, how does someone take their current home and sell it and use that in a model that's similar to the senior living industry life lease, and it's an upfront cost, and that they use that as the mortgage holder in building that one unit. We're planning on doing duplexes here, as you can kind of see. And using that to have a long runway of living independent using their equity. And then we would be similar to like Habitat, where we set the cost of their monthly as less than 30% of their income. We set that. Just kind of a comparable out there, not a surprise, but a new build house in Fitchburg is over the price range of the middle income senior by about $100,000, if not more. And those aren't being necessarily built for accessibility. And we really feel that building in community is also important. This is just a very general sources and uses of a project that we proposed in Oregon. And it's similar in Habitats, like how you stack grants and donations, along with having that loan and covering the costs and land prep. And how do we make that number work is just lots of pieces of the puzzle in working with municipalities to figure out, how do we cover all those costs, those pre-development costs, as well as, like I said, activating the seniors' home equity as our major investment. And the land acquisition is different per project. One of the ones we were proposing was on tax-exempt land, but we've also looked at using a pilot payment in lieu of taxes to try to lower that cost for that senior. And obviously, we have to get community engagement and grants and donations, just like Habitat, to make those numbers work. We're here for the long run. We have a lot of spreadsheets to make all those numbers work out long term. And like I said, the residents would hold that mortgage on that unit, and then there wouldn't be financing once that life lease agreement was active. And if it was something like a small scale project of 6 units, there's kind of the costs annually, and they would have a monthly maintenance fee that would cover the staffing, maintenance, utilities, insurance, property taxes of fire and police. And if we did a ground lease, that's also another option. I've talked to Olivia Williams, in the land trust model. We've explored all different ways to make the property, because property is just really expensive. We've already partnered with Setsky Custom Homes. They are local, as well as all the building components would be built by Amwood out of Janesville. This is their renderings of a duplex that would be about 1,300 square feet. It would be that 2-car garage, that 2-bedroom, laundry. There would be a basement, but just because that is better for HVAC and all those things. So that we can change the narrative from those who are leaving. How many know Jeannie Seelig? She is the mother of my neighbor, so I know her well. And she, like I said, is a great supporter and an advocate for the work we are trying to do to keep seniors living. And I want to use her story, again, to spur us on for the work of figuring out how to keep seniors here in town. She says it was especially hard for her to leave Fitchburg, because she was on the town board, the city council, and she was mayor in 1985. She was active in the senior center and put lots of time in getting the library built and really this whole campus. And it was her home for 47 years, and they reluctantly had to move out of Fitchburg to Oakwood Village. They love it there, but it's not Fitchburg. And she knows other seniors who have had to move out to the east side of Madison to find housing that suits their needs. And again, she says, I hope not many more people have to leave because each time Fitchburg loses some of its history and sense of community. Jeannie Seelig, former mayor of Fitchburg. And so I ask, how can we help retain our Fitchburg residents? I feel like some of the steps that we can take are having partnerships. I have met with Habitat. I've met with other housing advocates. I love what Hillary Parker, the CEO of Habitat, says is like, in order to get this done, we need to have a community focus. We can't be silos in doing this. And then meeting with the planners and the zoners, how can we do some incremental changes? I'm part of the Town Makers that's headed up. We meet on Thursday again. And that is really just how can we do incremental change locally to make housing more affordable and feasible for our neighbors. And then just meeting with Deanna, just talking about where are the possibilities where green pastures could be in the future urban development or urban areas, where there's sewer or future sewer, those infill properties, as well as exploring what the rural cluster developments are in the rural areas of having small scale developments even among the agricultural lands. Because I like this quote from another person in the rural area saying, we need to transition the farmland to the younger generation who can't even afford to live here now. So I feel like that there is a need in both the rural and suburban areas of Fitchburg. And I think there's a way that we can take, your housing fund and make it a revolving housing fund through our business plan and create a flywheel using the current Fitchburg seniors' home equity and grow and increase and scale and keep building more and more houses, as well as maintaining and repairing their current housing stock. Because I feel like all of those things need to do. We need to build new, we need to renovate, we need to make them accessible. We kind of need to do everything, because I think the challenge of even just making 500 more houses for Fitchburg in the regional housing, well, how do we do that? And there is a statistic saying, 1 million houses are off the market because there's it's seniors sitting on house that they have nowhere to go. And I think one of those ways to start that flywheel of housing is activating what they have in their house. And if their house isn't going to be worthwhile for them to age in place, can they sell it and bring it into the first homeowners for another family who needs it? So I like to say, the seniors are the retired workforce. How can they hand over their house to the current workforce and keep building and opening up more housing stock in the market and providing a house for our seniors to age in place? So thank you for your time, opportunity. That's how you get me. Or if you've seen me in Brava, that's my Brava picture. Questions?
And I want to thank you for your presentation. This is wonderful.
Thanks.
I'm going to put Ginny on the spot a little bit.
I have so much to say.
Because Jenny came to me, as I'm learning more about our population and our needs, Jenny shared with me that there is a population in this income bracket that are in need of housing, and that there's limited housing stock. So this is kind of one of the ideas of kind of helping that issue. And then also, Ann and I did a lunch and learn with the seniors about a month ago. And some seniors expressed some interest in that they have this big home and they want to find something smaller and stay in Fitchburg, especially because we have an awesome senior center here. So, so I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, thank you. This hits the nail right square on the head of what I'm facing. I have current clients right now that are sitting on a 5,000 square foot house, and it's just the two of them, and they're in their 70s.
Yep.
and this house could be sold to a young family, but they have nowhere to go. One of my questions is, how do you address the isolation issue with, you're talking about putting these properties out in the country? Mm-hmm. And, I know with some of my clients, their concerns about, we want to be somewhere that's close to activities and to grocery and restaurants and bars and, we'd love to Overture Center, and, we don't want to have to drive 9 miles out of the city and so how do you address that? I mean, I see the benefits of country living. It's beautiful and quiet and peaceful, but you're also isolating those seniors that as they age, they don't necessarily want to have to get in the car and drive really far to access things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it depends on your idea of community. Because I feel like being a girl from the country, I think we do things differently and our community looks differently. So I go back to the Golden Girls of like, they were a community in a house, and is it a couple houses on a farmstead where your community is the people you live with, but you're also, I feel like that isolation and engagement is that on your property? Is that houses with a shed where you can do your hobbies or your garden or animals? A lot of seniors don't move out into senior living communities because they have to give up their pets. Is their pets their community? And I also vie that, in the country, we're very used to driving 20 minutes somewhere. But I feel like, I think it's up to that individual client of like, okay, if you do want to still be in the city, how do we make that work? What is your community? What is your engagement? How do we empower you to keep those things that you love doing working, So I think it's different. Our model's different in every project that we pursue. Of what is the engagement, what is the community, and how do we form that? Because isolation is a big problem, and we can't always rely on what we used to be like. Oh well, my family will look after us or whatever. A lot of people of rural communities have moved away, and their families are farther away. So how do we make community that's not necessarily our family? I feel like it's dependent on who I'm talking to and what there's important. And that's why, I say affordable housing and assistance to resources, because I do consultation in helping people realize what do they want retain in this season of life, because it looks different and it changes, and how do they stay engaged? And I think that's an integral part in just building a house, is what is that house and what is the access to that?
And what about the support services in terms of, is it like a condo kind of thing where you have, snow?
It's a condo structure.
Grass and, who takes care?
Again, it's so small scale that it's dependent on who lives there and what they decide it to be. So it's resident driven. So there's no program director.
Okay, because I'm just thinking about this in terms of kind of looking at, a condo development. Mm-hmm. For a senior that would be convenient where they don't have to be out there shoveling.
We would do all the maintenance and things like that.
Yeah.
So the snow and the lawn care is taken care of. But not to say we couldn't have it provided by the residents if they are physically able and willing to volunteer to do it as well.
My grandparents lived in Milwaukee for 30, 40 plus years and moved to Alabama in a rural area. They're 93 and 96 years old. And I think part of their longevity is because they're outside doing farm work, kind of raising their own garden and so forth. And I attribute that to their living, just their lifestyle. So,
Thank you for sharing.
So do you have any of these built? I guess I'm on your website and it's not clear. So this is something you're trying to get off the ground.
Yeah, we are still working on our pilot project. And again, we have proposed things in Oregon a couple times, and something prevented it from getting off the ground. We're currently working in Janesville with a property as well. But yeah, each of those projects looked a little different. But we feel that once we prove concept and start reproducing these in different areas, that it'll get off the ground.
So is your vision sort of, there's maybe 8 of these homes all to create that community?
Yeah, it depends on how big that property is, and zoning and setbacks and all those things. The Janesville one is only an acre, so that's only 2 duplexes. We proposed something in Oregon was it was 2 phases of, the first one would be 3 duplexes and then eventually 5 more in the second phase. And then the other Oregon one, I think it was a mixture income. It was, I think, 8 units for our middle income, and then it was so long ago. It was only 2 years ago. I think it was 4 lower income. So we tried to collaborate that, and that was not passed by the board. So yeah, it's a competitive world out there, and the numbers don't always work. But we're hoping to work with some property owners and municipalities to figure it all out, because it's a complex thing. But I know that's why no one else is doing it, because it's hard. But it needs to get done. So there's lots of opportunities, even just in the last couple weeks, of talking to people in DeForest. And even just I do an advocacy committee, and we talked about, through Fitchburg, your funds. I'm just forgetting the award that you won for home funds, or the pro housing. There we go. Sorry, it is late in the day. The pro housing funds, what can we do with that? I think it was Mount Horeb. And then there is, I've met with Habitat, and, seeing what possibilities they could do, because they haven't done, I think, much senior housing. So even just collaborating and how to work with each other on certain projects that come up to make this work. I have a lot of other spreadsheets, but I thought I would just spare that.
So I want to make sure that I understand this. So I have a 5,000 square foot house, and I have $750,000 of equity, and Brian has a house that's much bigger than mine, and he has $1 million in equity. Do you put us together, and how does that work as far as our interest? It seems like there should be different ownership interest levels based upon what kind of equity you bring to the project, correct?
It's really just, can you afford that buy-in of, what did I say, 350?
So you have a minimum buy-in, and if you have more equity, then that's used to pay for your maintenance fees and things like that. I'm trying to understand how the whole model works, because I'm just, in my mind, I don't understand how it works.
Okay.
So it's a life lease agreement.
It's a life lease agreement that is very common to, Attic Angels has it, Oakwood has it. By the way, most of those have a 5-year waiting plan. And it's really, those are great places, but not everybody wants to live in those big units either. And so to my fact of it, we're really trying to target that middle income. And if I feel like the first comment is if you have that equity and this is something that you'd want to move to, well, you would just take your equity, your extra equity, and you'd put that in your savings for your health care. This is just a way to, put in some of your home equity so that it will last you the season of living independently. And I feel like if it's in a cared for environment that you will remain living independently much longer in a supported community. And it's different because, in putting together this business model and seeing where the funding is available, we're doing this because there isn't government funding for this. And so there's no, I don't want to say there's not government regulation of like who we decide who goes. Obviously you want to have a good, because we don't qualify for government funding because we are beyond the AMI that gets funding, if that makes sense. WIDA, I think, only funds to 80 AMI. They are looking into doing some 80 to 120, but even talking with them and showing them our business model, they say we don't qualify because we're taking the ownership of the house and not the residents because it is a life lease. We don't qualify for WIDA money. We don't qualify for HUD money. We don't qualify for USDA money. We don't qualify. Trust me, I've tried everything. And I feel like there might still be something out there in the future, and I just keep asking. But we're doing this, like I said, and making the seniors our investors because they are between two buckets. They don't qualify for government assistance. They don't qualify for any of the AMI. Like, I think a lot of seniors I meet, they're like, oh, there's senior housing. And they go and they apply and they're like, oh, I own my own house. I don't qualify to live here. Or I've talked to people who, they got into the senior housing and then the next year their income went out and they were forced to leave. And now they have nowhere to go. So the people we serve are the people who don't qualify for any government assistance in housing or funding, but cannot afford the market rate. But they are a retired workforce. They are teachers. They're the workforce that built most of our community, like Jeannie, like her husband. There's a lot of people who've served our community that no longer can afford living here. And that's the people who is our voice and who we serve and desire to have them remain living in our community. So there isn't any like government regulations of, well, who do you accept and who you don't. I'm assuming it's some sort of process like Habitat where, we have that relationship. We say, is this a good relationship? Do we want to commit to each other in making sure we're committed to our housing and paying our mortgage and all that stuff? Does that make sense? Like I said, that's why I use the 3 references because it's an innovative approach to something that in some ways hasn't been done before, but yet in some little ways it is done. Well, it's like Attic Angels, but it's not like that. And it's not like cooperative housing, or it's not exactly like Habitat, Even, it's funny, when I met with Habitat, I made a Venn diagram. Okay, this is what you do, this is what I do, this is what we can work together. And we said, although, I think we can figure out how to work together down the road. But there is still some things of Habitat's just home ownership, and our residents don't actually own the property because we take on all that.
Are there any other questions?
Just your ideal site would be for 6 to 8 units? Is that?
I would say so, about, yeah.
Okay.
It depends on the project.
Okay.
I could even see like renovating a farmhouse and having, I'll say those Golden Girls live together if they wanted to.
Okay.
I have a friend that's like, and if you bring a taco truck, I'll sign up. I mean, I could get a taco truck there. But yeah, I feel like it depends on the project and how can people commit to living together in community as they age in place. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thanks so much,
Ann.
Ann.
And I have extra stickers if you didn't get it. I ran out of business cards, but thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And Ann, would you be able to provide your presentation as well?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, I already shared that Google link, and that should be active. So I
That's
think you actually already have it.
Perfect.
But
Thank you.
Oh, I think the next thing on our agenda is then a report from the department. I don't know if that's Mike or Joyce or Lorene.
I think it's a combination of all of us. So I can
There you
kind of start off. One of the biggest things that I've been working on is the RFP process for the housing plan. So in February, actually February 28th, we issued a RFP. And March 11th was the date that any consultant can send an email to submit any questions. And we had a really great response. So about 7 consultants reached out, and we did kind of a question and answering session and really great feedback. So then proposals were due on the 25th. And surprisingly, in addition, we had some additional consultants to submit their RFP. So we had kind of about 12 people total that had some interest. So we had to, as a team, Jenny was part of our team, we worked together to kind of score and determine the top consulting companies that we wanted to interview. So we had 4 consultants, and all of them were awesome. So it was really, really great interviews. So we decided on redevelopment resources. So they will be working with, well, actually at this point, we'll review their contract, and then it'll go to council for review. So, and that'll be at the May 27th council meeting. So we'll keep you updated on that process. And also, there's quite a bit of housing projects that are coming up. One is through J.T. Klein, and right now he's working through a minor comp plan amendment, and that is going to provide additional senior housing. So 3 buildings, 80 units, 60 affordable units, which is really great. And a lot of our seniors are very excited about this project, and it's very close to Target and the shopping area, so very convenient for shopping and then also transportation. So very excited about that project. Some other ones that are coming up. Newcomb project, 300 units, Seminole and Lacey, and that will be market rate multifamily. Also Oak Meadows, single family housing, 15 lots, and that's kind of in the neighborhood of the radio station. Yep. And then the question was, who was doing that one? Mike?
It's just the property owner at this point in time, Thompson. Yeah, that was the one that's south of the Noble Ridge condominiums there. That'll be single family lots now.
Phil Spium, the home in Bobberschmidt, is working on a revised Article 3. So looking at land development opportunities there. And Corey Franks, townhomes in the Hartung Fields is something that's coming in the near future.
He's just finishing those that are getting occupancy as we speak. So it's a townhome rental product, which was something that, again, was identified in the 2019 housing plan that we needed more stock of those units.
And then also in the near future, I think Mike talked about possibly doing some field trips so that you can kind of tour some of the properties that I mentioned. So I guess you can just kind of share some of your availability throughout the summer, and maybe we can have a field trip that we can view these properties.
And 3 places to visit that are in kind of close proximity, so we thought it could be an efficient tour. But you could see some of the new housing product that's coming online is the Lacey Ridge townhomes here at Notre Dame Drive and Lacey Road. We would go, and that's an ownership product there. Then we would go to Corey Frank's townhomes that are a rental product. That would be at Hartung Fields. And then we would go to the higher density multifamily building that Ned Hoyt is building, the first one at Hartung Fields. And he's on the Plan Commission tomorrow night for Building B, which there will eventually be 3 buildings there, but we would want to go and see the first one. So we thought, since those 3 are each a different kind of product type and mix there, that, and they're in close proximity, could we do a little field trip if we scheduled that and worked with, well, we like to have fun. But it would be something, it wouldn't be in lieu of our meeting, a regular meeting, it would be kind of an extra one. So maybe in one of the off months, if we could kind of coordinate with people's schedules, if there's something that we could make work, that we would go and see some of that housing stock. It's great to see it on paper and, if you look at it on screen, but to me, there's nothing more beneficial than actually getting out there and walking it and just kind of seeing it in real time.
Hey, Mike, is there one place that you can look at for information as it relates to what's available in Fitchburg? So something that lists, these are the apartments that are Section 42, these are the market rate. These are the bedroom configurations. These are under construction. These are completed. Something that gives you a sense of what Fitchburg has as it relates to rentals.
The site that we always kind of go through is probably the apartments.com to kind of do a search in there. That's one of the places that I go. And then you can even put in kind of, I think, income-based and kind of unit types. I think there's other ones out there. I think there's a local platform too that you can go to do a lookup, similar to that, and then.
But those would only be.
The city doesn't have anything.
No, the city doesn't have a platform that we utilize. No.
And we don't have any kind of resource for a sort of coming soon, like what's in the pipeline. Those apartments.com, that'll all be completed, available, ready to rent units.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had sometimes, and Joyce can tell you this anecdotally, we've had sometimes some major employers that have reached out to us to ask us where there's new inventory coming and new product that we've been able to refer them so they could kind of get an early foot in the door for those units. Especially the market seems to have softened a little bit according to some of the folks that we're talking to in the multifamily product, but at the height of the market where people were signing leases unseen, sight unseen and everything, and just visiting one place, I think it's moderated a little bit there. But we were getting, during the height of the market, some employers calling and finding out where we had new inventory under construction or planned. Mm-hmm.
Right now, we're actually working with Dakota and able to help developers, any vacant parcels, so that they can access that information. Because oftentimes when we work with developers, we're kind of starting from scratch each time. So just having that information readily available is something that we plan to do. And then also the ability to print it off as a PDF as well. So.
Mallory, I'm just going to comment on your question. So I'm just thinking of like the new fountains that has well over 300 to 500 units, somewheres around there. For us to try and maintain something like that, that changes on a day-to-day basis. So really the best way to do it is to just reach out to the apartments. I mean, there's no way we could maintain something like that because there's 3 of us in our department, and that would require a lot of staff time to be able to put together something like that. But I believe the Tenant Resource Center also kind of has a listing for property owners to put their projects out there. And that really should be the responsibility of the property management company to market the properties that they have listed and provide that information. Even tax credit projects, we don't know sometimes that they've gone out of the program, if their contracts have gone up. So that's really, really difficult to track, just because I've tried to do it before.
Sounds like a good You know what I was thinking? It sounds like a good project for an intern for the summer from the UW. If you could recruit somebody to do that. I might know somebody who has connections that could help you out if you wanted to.
Right. But, I guess I would rather, my thing is if we're going to put something out there, then we really need to maintain it. And I don't know how we could do that. I really just don't know how. I can't hardly keep up with keeping track of who the property managers are because they change so often.
Mallory, are you talking about particularly tracking affordable units that come online?
Just what's the inventory? What's market rate? What's Section 42? What's online? What's currently there? Again, some may have gone through their tax credit compliance period and through their LURA. So now what are they? So you get a feeling for what's in the jurisdiction. Because I think if you're looking to discuss what we need as far as affordable housing, it's good to have a grasp on what we have, right? So kind of have an idea as to what those numbers are. Yeah.
Brought up that maybe that's something that we can have our housing consultants to kind of look at. So I think that's very interesting, Mallory. So I can definitely pose that once we are working with them.
Yeah, they're going to be tasked with looking at the inventory and the demand. And so part of that's going to be identifying what housing is here. So, but as Joyce pointed out, it's a moving target. So it changes every month and it's, hard to know. But I think generally they're going to identify all the different housing stock that we have and developments and what type are they. And so that'll be a useful thing for you to get your hands on once it's done, end of year, right? Yeah.
Yeah, in October.
It's
Okay.
a much needed.
Anything else?
Oh, it's a much needed data update as part of the housing plan refresh. And then the other thing that they will be doing is the scope of work with regards to the fee comparison that was in the 2019 plan that they'll be looking at to see update that information as well for us, which is some, again, much needed data so our policymakers can think about any kind of adjustments or modifications or policy considerations that they want to consider. No, I think that covered the development ones, although we've been having lots of meetings as well regarding some of the available land in Fitchburg as far as infill developments. So multiple developers we've met with regarding the Fossite property, the Cleanfill site between MM and 14. We just had a recent meeting on the iHeart property just over here at the corner. We'd like to hopefully work with the elected officials to come up with a development partner at that site and move forward with a minor comp plan amendment that works for them and also that works for the elected officials. Julie is nodding her head back there. And
wasn't there talk about the townhomes model there at one point, or?
Well, I think the ideal there, because right now the current or the future land use is low density residential, but I think everybody's discussed that we're open to maybe a higher level of density where maybe around the pond there would be some higher density apartments, and then as you transition down, it would transition from not only density, from higher density down to townhomes and maybe duplex or smaller lot single family, but then also from rental to ownership. So that way it kind of transitions and blends in with the existing Noble Ridge condominiums that are to the south, and then the single family that's to the west. So that would be kind of the ideal, that somebody would come with a master plan for a mix of that kind of product at that site. So we're putting a lot of feelers out there and having conversations with various developers to see if we can find one that works for us to work with the electeds on a minor comp plan amendment, but that also works with iHeart and kind of their economics and everything.
Because I know one time some of the discussion was, the potential discussion, there are two private residential property, and I'm not suggesting, but there were two private residential properties as you go south, and whether those would be available or could be part of a larger project there.
Mm-hmm. So, everybody that we have a conversation with, we always mention that as in an ideal world, they would assemble, everything. We don't necessarily know the motivations of the single family property owners.
Of course.
Yeah, at this point in time. And then one other project I should mention, I think we didn't cover, is the Bowman Plaza. That's one that we get a lot of questions on and everything. And so we're working with Ned Hoyt on that development. And the plan is to have a 7-story building, 5 floors of apartments, 280 market rate units, 9,500 square feet of commercial space, and then it takes 2 floors of underground parking to accommodate that. That probably will be a 2026 kind of start there for timing of demolition, as well as then a construction start. And part of the reason for that is we're trying to time any decrement with the demolition with new construction start to kind of even that out so we don't dig ourselves a little hole up there through our tax increment district. But we've been, I think we've come close to terms of a deal for that from a TID standpoint to drive that redevelopment. And we're very excited about that project. That would be one of the, or that would be, I think, the tallest building in Fitchburg at 7 stories. And people on the top floors would have some good capitol views from up there. So we're excited about that. The other one, I always start to think of things now as I'm talking and rambling here, but over on the west side of Fitchburg in the Jamestown Quarry, this is the reclamation of the quarry site across from Super Target there. As the road Fitcherona veers to the east, Corey Frank, who does the Texas Wrap apartment buildings with the parking structure in the middle, if you see all the earthwork over there, which is exciting to see, and the reclamation of the outfield, he will be doing a Texas Wrap building there. And then, again, the 4 uses across the front of McKee Road, west of Fitcherona, there will be a Chase Bank, a Chick-fil-A, a Crew Car Wash, and then a McDonald's. And then in the middle, to the north of those, the developer Colburn Huntley, Jeff Huntley, is assembling, hopefully, a portfolio of some of the junior boxes of the Ross Altas of the world and others that have potential. So we're excited about kind of adding really good trade ring demographics over there, and excited to see that development starting to move dirt and move forward. And then another one, exciting one, over on the east side of Fitchburg in uptown Fitchburg. We now have seen the renderings for the first healthcare anchor in uptown Fitchburg over there by the roundabout. It's a joint venture between UW Health, LifePoint, and Sanders Trust, and that's going to be a 40-bed physical rehabilitation hospital, and they hope to break ground in July of this year. So that's going to start to be that first piece of that healthcare, significant healthcare anchor that will be part of uptown Fitchburg.
Really? If I can ask, how many units on the Quarry Ridge project on the wrap?
Was that 280, I think? 280. Yeah, I think it's around 280 over there. And those are market rate apartments over there. Yeah.
I feel a request for a pedestrian bridge coming, but we'll leave that for another time. I can feel it.
And then Lorene mentioned the Article 3, and sometimes we get into our government speak here. That's the regulating plan for smart code there. So if you look at the 400 acres between Highway 14, Sain Road, north of Lacey Road, and south of kind of Clayton Road, that's the 400 acres that this Article 3 regulating plan of the 4 main property owners over there in the beginning. And so Phil Sveum, who we introduced to the Holmes-Baberschmidt family, who is the developer of Terra Vesa, is serving in a consulting capacity to the family, and we've made more progress in the last 8 months to move that forward. And the Article 3 that our city planner, Deanna Schmidt, and her team, Zach, are reviewing right now is going to start to move along to more development ready of that Holmes-Baberschmidt land. So as you come off the Highway 14 interchange, the land north of Lacey Road, they've got a good 90 acres there, and then Osborne has a sliver along Highway 14, but it's going to start to open up that land for development. And one of the most common questions we get is, when is the grocery store coming? And our response is always, as we fill in the trade ring, it's not a matter of if there will be a grocery, it's a matter of who and when, and who maybe will come early. And we're starting to reach out to developers that actually do mixed-use buildings that have grocery anchors. So we'll continue to drive those conversations. But that's going to be a critical catalyst to start to open up that land. That's been a missing piece over there. And then I think Joyce has an update on our program that's launched.
So I have a quick update on the Efficiency Navigator. So as you remember, we have 7 buildings that are in the first round of what I call Phase 2, Project 1. 4 buildings have had their initial testing done. 3 of them had some minor gas leaks that were taken care of. One has a significant gas leak, and that today we were supposed to be getting some information on how they plan to fix that. And also we will probably get a change order for that, because it's going to require probably more work than just maybe tightening some screws or something. And then one building has had the pre-testing done, and the weatherization started on April 10th, and it was expected to be wrapped up on the 12th. So we may have one building completed already, and the 3 remaining buildings have work scheduled for April 21st to May 9th. So I know that they're actually working on getting Phase 2 ready, which is some of the more significant work that needs to be done, such as refrigerators, heating units, and some windows. I anticipate having some quotes soon, and I'll start to get the contract ready for us to approve.
That's it?
Yes.
Perfect. Can I hear a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Perfect. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.